All right, Jason, I have your quad done. So this is a Racer X Twiglet, 2.5 inch. And I actually just did a video on this because I built it recently and wanted to show it off. So I sold it to Jason and he wanted Crossfire on it. I had an XM Plus in there, so I did swap out the XM Plus for a Crossfire Nano. It's in the same spot that the XM Plus was, which is going across the front, underneath the lens here in the front. You can see it's kind of pushing the canopy out a tiny bit in the front there, but that's where the bind button is actually. Just be careful. There's a little yellow wire right here. You can see that is the video in. So you don't want to be like moving that back and forth or wiggling it. It'll end up snapping off. For some reason on this camera, which by the way is my favorite nano camera, this is the Runcam Phoenix Nano 2. It's just so awesome. But they use like those hard plastic wires. I don't understand why they do that. The kind that has like the plastic that just melts really easily, you know? And it's just ridiculous. I don't understand why they don't use better wires. But anyway, be careful of that wire. But the bind button is like right next to it right there. What you might... Actually, you probably won't even need to push the bind button because you never do with the Crossfire Nano. But if you did happen to need to, you might want to just unscrew this screw right here. So it's the front one right there. Or it's underneath the battery strap there. Just to bring the canopy up a tiny bit. And then I cut a piece of the heat shrink out where the bind button is. So you might even be able to get to it without moving the canopy. It's just right there, right inside the canopy. It's running Betaflight 4.2. I uploaded the VTX table for the VTX, which is a Unify Pro 32 Nano. And I put screws on the motors for the props. And I think that's pretty much all I did. I've been struggling with my Crossfire TX this morning for some reason. I was trying to update it and it would update, and then the next step was verification, and right when I get to the verification step it would just give me an exclamation point like something was wrong, but it doesn't tell you what's wrong. It just stops there and doesn't finish. So finally what I was able to do was go, because that's for using the TBS Agent X, which is their newer one. So I had to use their older one, which is just called TBS Agent, and it flashed in there, but the newest firmware that they have on that one was 2.42, which is a pretty old firmware, so it kind of sucks, but at least I can still use the module. Which, by the way, that's the firmware that was on this receiver, because before I had a newer firmware and I was going to bind this and it said update receiver ? You know, and I clicked yes. So obviously it was on an older one than what I had before on my module. I'm getting really confusing right now, aren't I? Anyway, it's on 2.42, just for your information. But I'm sure you don't have any problems with your Crossfire module, so you know when you click bind and it says do you want to update the receiver, just click yes and it should update just fine. Anyway, so when I put 2.42 on my module and I went to click bind, it just bound right up, which means that the receiver was also on 2.42 is what I'm saying. Okay. There's your video. You got some black lines in the video, but looks pretty good. Alright, let's do a hover. And this is the battery that's on there now is a 300 milliamp hour 3S, which would be like the perfect battery for this. .4 is just so awesome. I just love it. So smooth. This thing is gonna fly so good for you. Alright. Yeah, one thing I noticed on 4.2 when I was flying the other day was I could not get it to give me any prop wash. It was crazy. It's like the first time ever, the first firmware ever that I've seen that I just couldn't get any prop wash at all. It was just awesome. And that was on just like totally stock PIDs, you know. So anyway, there it is. I'm going to get it boxed up and shipped out today, and I'll send you a tracking when I have it. All right, thanks, Jason.